Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. The Squadron 42 monthly report for both November and December is now available, so let us break them down. As always, a big thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to Rucken, who is my latest channel member. Thank you so much for the support. So as mentioned, this month's reports contain both November's and December's updates, so it's a bit of a double whammy. Kicking off as usual with AI content, the team focused on deck crews and security AI behaviours, with them saying that deck crew activities brings life and movement to hangars and landing pads, with each deck crew character being assigned a specialised role. And these include Ordnance, who is responsible for the ship's weapons and armaments, the mechanics, who are in charge of repairs and maintenance of the ship, and the air traffic controller, who assigns landing zones to inbound craft and more. They said that next is to build on the basic functionality to make the whole crew work together to restore full functionality to damaged ships and vehicles, which will be quite the sight, watching the crew in the hangar working on your ship after a sortie, for example, fixing it up, refueling it, and rearming it. It'll be amazing to witness. Now, the security behaviour controls players and NPCs access to specific areas, with the team looking into how to use the reputation system to determine where characters are allowed to go. For example, guards reacting accordingly to deny or allow access, or maybe saluting a higher rank. Now, the first implementation is the military guard, but this activity will be used for bouncers and, as CIG puts it, mall cops. So I expect it'll be used around landing zones as well, maybe restricting access to certain areas, which in turn will create some stealth or hacking gameplay trying to gain access. Now, the AI features team have been improving human combat, adjusting the perception systems to support NPCs perceiving dead or incapacitated bodies and having them react as intended. If not in combat, the first AI to find a body will go and check on them, and then this will trigger the investigation behaviour. And in the future, some incapacitated bodies will of course be able to be revived, healed, or released from captivity by an appropriate agent. Really hoping that this is done in a way that doesn't feel gamified, more Metal Gear Solid than Elder Scrolls, I think. Now, in support of the weapons training behaviour, which includes using firing range simulators, the AI need to be able to target neutral, non-agent targets tagged for a particular lane, so different agents can use the simulators at the same time. And I think what this is meaning here is that AI can use the firing range at the same time, and they can aim at these static targets rather than them being NPCs or players or whatever. Now, this work also makes it easier to support other targetable objects in the future, such as objects that agents might want to sabotage or destroy to further the gameplay. An agent, I assume, is being a kind of living NPC or AI, so making sure that the NPCs can fire at other things that are targetable, like ship systems and so on, to sabotage and whatnot. Now, for Vanduul combat, a section of gameplay was completed where enemy perception is reduced when searching for the players. They say this led to the discussion of how to implement low visibility and other sense reductions across the board. They then prototyped the initial implementation for this specific gameplay use, which will be used as a springboard for fully developing this feature. Vanduul perception and investigation progressed as well. I do wonder when we will get to see the Vanduul in action in-game, or whether this is something that they are saving for Squadron 42. I do feel like they are saving it, and personally, I kind of want them to save it, as that will really bring fear when we first meet the Vanduul in-game for the first time. Plus, it does go with the lore. We don't technically know much about the Vanduul as humans in the verse in this date, so it wouldn't feel right being able to see them too much beforehand. Finally, on the animation side, the team worked with mocap for cowering and surrender animations, hit reactions from different stances, the speed protocol of animations for dead body reactions, and Vanduul attack and search animations. Lots of data required polish and integration into existing animations, with particular care being made to check that animations start and end in poses consistent with the most common use cases, so that blending is as smooth as possible. it will be nice to see more animations smoother and less jittery because they are a bit all over the place right now. So talking of animation, now to the animation team. They did work on Vanduul and human combat as well and made improvements to human AI locomotion. The facial team continued with quality passes on animations affected by improvements to the head geometry, while the mocap team supported a short shoot and are currently solving the data gathered. Finally, gameplay story worked alongside level design to implement and correct various story scenes that play throughout gameplay. Next, we have character art. They focused on completing the Navy faction, which involved updating and finalizing major characters and outfits, and the Navy make up around half of all the characters in the campaign, with the majority of them being hero tier characters, so it will be a significant milestone when complete. So for cinematics, they continued larger staging tasks and progressed with scenes started at the beginning of Quarter 4. An escape pod was reworked to give a better view outside, while work progressed on a scene involving a tram. Sounds like we might be in an escape pod at some point. Maybe, we'll see. The team also improved the way conversations are hinted at and then triggered, creating a speech bubble style icon to show players important characters. They can talk to them while in populated areas. They say that as the players can interact with most of the crew members, this enables them to find key characters and conversations without approaching every NPC. They're currently deciding on how this display will be orientated and how to lead players to the ideal approach direction for specific characters. I really hope that we will be able to play through Squadron 42 without any AI on screen and only using the diegetic AI. I would love for my playthrough personally and on YouTube or Twitch to be as immersive as possible, and in certain games I always turn off every single piece of UI, so hopefully that will be the case in Squadron 42 and it will just be leading us without needing the use of UI. Now the gameplay features team continued to develop the in-game character customizer, improving support for head selection and hair, and supporting the design team with transition animations and the user interface. They also undertook R&D on the conversation inner thought, primarily on how it appears when the player approaches an NPC and whether there are any restrictions on where it triggers from. Finally, they also optimized some cinematic heavy scenes, including simplifying ways to create lightweight vehicles, improving multi-threaded sequence batch updating, and checking that they're not loading more than necessary. I am glad that Inner Thought is getting looked at. It's not an easy system to get right, as any floating UI, as I've mentioned, is not great in such an immersive game, so having it blend naturally while being understandable is going to be difficult, I feel. Right, next up, we have Gameplay Story, who begun updating poses to maintain and polish several scenes. They also received a significant amount of mocap, which allowed them to make a number of anticipated updates to several scenes across various chapters. They overhauled one of the walk and talk sections in Chapter 5 to give them greater control of the animation. They took on 2 new scenes in Chapter 14 that take place in a busy environment, started their past prototyping the other animation and activities going on around the scene themselves. A new and improved turret metric was devised, allowing the team to confidently update scenes featuring turrets, and they began implementing new audio, face, and body animations into random NPC scenes, with the team saying it is surprising to see how much final audio improves a scene, and it's great that NPC characters can now reply to cast characters. I love reading the term final when they're talking about Squadron 42. It is great hearing that final aspects are now getting implemented. It is a good sign of things to come. Now onto graphics and visual effects programming. The graphics team completed a significant amount of work on the shaders and materials towards the end of last year, with one of the main focuses being updating the volumetric water lighting. So it now works in a similar way to volumetric fog, plus there were several other bug fixes for water volumes in general as well. The hair shader also received attention due to updates to the hair clip volume interaction and efforts to prevent artists from having to rework assets through emulating the old visuals with the latest shading model. They also completed the shader conversion from the old DX9 style, and for Gen 12, the team implemented a fallback rendering system called Pass Group Fallback for use when the shaders are compiling. For Vulkan, they continued with the GPU marker refactor, adding API versioning and fixing issues with arrays of resources on Vulkan. Great hearing about Vulkan and Gen 12 progress. There is more information on that, I think, that we will get to in the PU monthly report, but progress is clearly going well. Development of the fire hazard continued, with the visual effects programming team moving heat and temperature to the physics proxies, working on IR emissions or infrared, and fixing various bugs with the temperature component. Numerous updates were made to particles, and finally a number of performance improvements and optimizations were made to emitter memory consumption, material glow lock contention from entity effects, and gas cloud zone contention on destruction and impact MFX. No idea what any of that means. Now, for level design, the space and dogfighting team worked on the flight components for chapters that focus on points of interest, expanding some of the investigation gameplay in the game's early chapters. They also worked alongside the other features teams to refine turret gameplay. Now, the FPS team focused on getting FPS components playing through without blockers and implemented the additional features delivered in the last quarter. The social design team continued with the significant task of implementing all in-game scenes, which will be the case for many months to come. Great hearing that they are now getting all the game scenes implemented from the social design team. Even if it's going to take a while, it's good to hear. Plus, it's nice hearing that the FPS team is making sure that all the FPS components play through without issues. It does sound more like it is polishing and tweaking the game, which is definitely good news. Next, we have the narrative team, who spent the bulk of the past few months dividing their time between content and planning. Work continued on tracking all of the requests in prep for a capture later this year. They also began working alongside the dev teams to review and discuss levels, including the AI team, to plan behaviors and archetypes. Finally, the writers will start building out scripts and creating placeholder audio in this year. Now, the QA team continued to aid cinematics with regular chapter testing. QA also continued to test and review scenes to ensure quality doesn't diminish as development continues. With the AI team now splitting to cover more Squadron 42 development, the Frankfurt-based QA team moved to support them and is currently hiring to help with the increased workload. The team will still focus on behavior testing, but this will be expanded into level checks alongside QA in the UK. So they are really pushing resources onto Squadron 42 now, so it is all hands on deck. Next up is Tech Animation, who set a mandate to finish upgrading all the head assets to the new pipeline in prep for the full DNA system refactor, which is a long-standing initiative that will hopefully conclude early this year, with the team saying, to get us there, we need to recreate every single head asset in the game and check that it's still working as we intend. All hands on deck for this one, with the whole team pushing to reach the finish line. Now, this is really exciting to hear, and it sounds like it is to be the final version of Squadron 42's DNA system. I do wonder if this will include my face, or whether they are holding on to those scans for the PU only. Hopefully I will be able to play as myself in Squadron 42. I never even considered that. Finally, the team began cleaning up the animation databases, which involved triaging several hundred old animation asset references from the databases. The team also continued to support the various feature teams with embedded staff. Now, the UI team addressed various UI-related bugs, crashes, and performance issues. Progress was also made on the core tech and feature set of the new STARMAP. Let's get a little mini cheer going. For example, they have added display controls to modify relative distance, orientation and scale, and the ability to frame selected objects appropriately. Thank Lord the new STARMAP is making progress. That is music to my ears. Now, the UI tech team continued work on the core tech for hacking, adding the ability to select and edit text in the UI. So I do wonder if we will be able to actually write text in-game. For hacking, for example, we know there will be a way of writing out the commands and whatnot as part of the skill, but it would be also great if we could write for other aspects, maybe using a glass, for example, which is the tablet made from Microtech, Great for taking notes during missions or even leaving other players notes, and maybe have some hints when you're exploring a derelict that was created by a player. There could be a journal with some sort of extra information, like this is a great location for mining and so on. I hope they can do that. I can see some problems with screening what players write, but I think that would be cool. The new building blocks editor entered pre-production towards the end of the year, which will make working on UIs more efficient and developer friendly, with more building blocks features added. If you don't know what building blocks is, it is the UI tool that kind of empowers developers to create their UI for their feature without relying on the UI team to do it, who were pretty much a bottleneck earlier on in development, which frees up them to create bigger, better things. Finally, we have the visual effects team, who have been working on a vertical slice section of a key outdoor location. Now, are they referring to a section of the vertical slice that we have seen, like the Slaver's base, or are they saying that they are now working on a new vertical slice that they will reveal to us at some point? Or is it they're working on the previous vertical slice to bring it up to the newest standards to show us again? I really hope so. VFX also continued to work with cinematics with additions and refinements made to the epic battle scene mentioned in the last report, and finally they decided to revisit some weapon effects requiring a visual update. So there you have it, that is the Squadron 42 monthly report for November and December. So much progress, getting closer to completion each month. It won't be too long now till we get January's monthly report. What are we on? The 22nd? So we're only a couple of weeks away before that will drop and we will get access to that. Those wondering where the engine team section is, I will include that into the PU monthly report when I get round to creating that one, which will be writing it tomorrow, hopefully released Monday or Tuesday. We will see how we get on. But that is it for this video. If you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. We are approaching the 50,000 subscriber mark fast. Also, do come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrothers Ryan. We're just chilling out, chatting about Star Citizen while I play some 3.16 and soon 3.16.1. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does do the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.